And the epidemic of addiction in this country, addicted to these painkillers, has absolutely. I had a buddy of mine just was telling me he just had back surgery, and they gave him some Oxycontin to help him with the pain from the recovery. And he called me up one day and he said, Father, I'm finished with my medicine, but boy, I tell you what, I feel jittery and I'm sweating all the time, and they tell me I look really pale. I said, well, son, you're detoxing. You're going through the DTs, man. I was a police officer in my 20s, and I worked on the DUI task force. And the DUI task force, we spent most of our time looking for people who were driving under the influence. I'll get it later. Oh, thank you. You want to get it for me? Thank you. And working on the DUI task force, I would come across people who were addicted to alcohol. And I don't know if you've ever known anybody that was addicted to alcohol or not, but you ask any alcoholic that's honest, and he'll tell you, or she'll tell you, I'm a slave to this. I wake up every morning. One day, we were running a roadblock, and a guy, I was giving the guy the test, the roadside test. I asked him to do the ABCs. He did his ABCs fine. Stand on one foot. He stood on one foot fine. Touch your nose, no problem. Horizontal gaze, nystagmus. I'll explain it later. He passed it, except right at the corner of his eye began to jump. When you're intoxicated, your horizontal gaze, nystagmus, the muscle that controls your eye movement, is involuntarily affected, and your eye will start to jump if you're under the influence. And his eye started to jump. I said, oh, he did everything else fine. But then I did a roadside sobriety test, and he blew into the little roadside sobriety test with a little breath, and it came up 0.52. 0.10 was the limit. And I thought to myself, this stupid machine is broke. And so I did it again. 0.52. Now this thing's garbage. Listen, I'm going to have to get an official breath test from you. So we walked him into what we called the Batmobile. It was a portable breathalyzer test machine that we had. And he sat down, and it wasn't 0.52, it was 0.53. Which meant, technically, he had more ethyl alcohol in his blood than hemoglobin. He should have been dead. But because the man had been a slave to alcohol for decades, his body had acclimated itself to the amount of alcohol in his body, and he started going into DTs at 0.20. Twice the legal limit, and he was shaking and needing to be hospitalized because he was away from alcohol. He drank every day, all day long. That man was a slave to his desires. In fact, it wasn't even a desire anymore. He had to have it. In fact, if you look at anyone that is addicted to anything in their life, you will find that it no longer gives them the pleasure that it used to give them, but they have to have it to feel normal. The slavery of addiction in this culture is based on ignorance. We are not informed about who we really are, and we're not informed about who really created us, and we're not informed about what He desires for us to be. Because of that ignorance, we look and search in the midst of this chaos for meaning and reality in our lives. And brothers and sisters, if we don't have normal orthodoxy to give us the standard by which a human being is true, we will grope and look for any other answer, and it will make us a slave. Ignorance is the first giant that is trying to capture us. The second giant is, I know, forgetfulness. Every presentation gets the same jokes, folks, okay? All right. Forgetfulness. So say I do spend the time to learn. But then in my life, because I live in a world, by the way, do you know what is one of the things that we say in the Divine Liturgy on a regular basis? In the Greek, it's proskomen. I don't know what it is in the Russian, but in English, it's let us be attentive. Right before we read the gospel, we say, be attentive, pay attention. Why do we say that? Because humans are notorious for not. We are notorious for not paying attention. And when I don't pay attention, I hit the mailbox. When I don't pay attention, I back up into the car that's next to me. When I don't pay attention, I fail to see the trouble coming before it gets here. A lack of attention, an ability to be gripped by forgetfulness, means that I no longer get the benefits of the information that I've gathered by overcoming ignorance. Forgetfulness is the second giant that will make you a slave to your passions. Your desires will be your master if you keep forgetting who you are. If you keep forgetting whose you are. If you keep forgetting why you were created. Why are you Orthodox in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania? Why? Why is Holy Trinity Parish here? Oh, well, our ancestors came. Okay, that's good. But why are you still here? Why don't your neighbors walk to church here? Do they know they can? And if they don't know they can, what are you doing about that? A lack of attentiveness, a lack of us gripping our why will always leave us a slave to our passions and a slave to short-sighted thinking. There's a great book that I have all my parish council read every time. We get a new parish council coming in. They all have to read this same book. The book is called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And Sinek says something very interesting in the book. It's a business book. It's not a religious book, but it's a powerful book. He says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. If you can't explain why you do what you do, no one's going to have any confidence in you. The reason why your kids drift away from the church and your grandkids drift away from the church is because no one has explained to them why it's important to stay. In the day and age of Google and the internet, do you know that your children and your grandchildren have at their fingertips in an hour on the internet more information than an adult male in 2010 would have in his entire life? On the internet, your children and grandchildren are exposed to more information in an hour than an adult man in 1910, I should say, in 1910 would have in his entire life. That kind of information means we have to be attentive to explaining to our children why it's worth staying Orthodox. And if we don't explain it to them, you please know there are a million other voices out there that will invite them to come and be with them. So if you want your kids to stay, then you have to know why you're Orthodox. And you have to be able to explain it as best you can. Forgetfulness is a giant that will try to destroy you and make you a slave. The final giant. Blast it. Can I move fast? Here goes. Ignorance, forgetfulness, and the final giant, I'm going to write it in Old English because it makes me feel better. Is sloth or laziness. I learn what I need to learn. I build into my life those things that keep me remembering the things that I need to know. But then the final giant that captures me and makes me a slave to my passions, my slave to my fear,